Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Well, good day to you. It is Halloween, October the 31st, 2020, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you happen to be. I don't know if you're planning on going to a Halloween party tonight or not or whatever. COVID is still out there, but maybe you are going to a Halloween party. The scariest costume I can think of is one without a mask. But if you happen to wait to the last minute to get a costume, oftentimes, and for most years, the pickings are pretty slim by this point, right? Most of the good costumes are gone. I know the times that I've waited to the last minute, a lot of times the only thing that's on the rack is a slutty lumberjack costume, and you don't want to see a 48-year-old man wearing one of those things. That's pretty scary, I'll tell you. And then what I have to do, instead of buying a costume, then I have to reach in the back of my closet and pull out some pajamas or a bathrobe that I haven't worn in years and go as Morning Gary. That's my costume usually. But anyway, now if this is your first time ever coming to Search for Signs, of course we don't talk about Halloween costumes typically. But what we do talk about, I think, is pretty incredible information. It's the reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom, Maitreya's priorities, what it means for you and me and everybody on the planet, and the hopeful message thereof. All right. The format for this is quite unique, relatively speaking, for most videos about this information, which is typically just a lecture format. We have more of a discussion between questions and comments and me trying to answer it and that kind of thing. So you might be interested in this information. Maybe you heard a little bit about it before and you want some more information, or maybe you've never heard anything about this and you're like, well, what the hell is that guy talking about? That's why in every video, I've always put links to different sources, background sources, that you can go do all the research you want. You look as much as you want until your heart's content, really. I would suggest starting with the Share International webpage. The link is in the description. I'm not a spokesperson for Share International, but I do from time to time and don't mind referring anyone to that site. It's a site that looks pretty dated. It's not a functional site really like you would see from websites of today. It's pretty much about 15 years old from what I can imagine. But that's not to say that the information isn't spot on. So it's wonderful information. There's a lot of links even in that website that you can do a lot of research and watch videos from Benjamin Creme and so forth. So a really good site to check out. Also, I would say check out Crop Circle Connector site that's in there and various other sites as well. Now, on this particular webpage, I have from time to time gone back and done some background videos to kind of help people get caught up in some of this information. The latest one that I recorded is on October the 9th. It's entitled, What If I Told You the Christ Has Already Returned to the World? So hopefully that will help. Now, also, too, you might be saying, well, if somebody's going to make that claim or at least pose that question in a video, he better have some proof to back it up. Now, I'm not saying this for proof, to give you proof or evidence or anything, but really it's still for your consideration and your consideration only. But I did create a playlist entitled My Maitreya Experiences. I grouped all the videos that I recorded about my personal experiences with Maitreya over the years. So not to offer it as proof, but to maybe give you a slightly different perspective on this information. All right, and maybe even jog a memory or two of a possible experience that you had with one of these masters, because I'm not the only one. There's thousands of people all over the world, maybe even millions now, that have had experiences with these masters. Maybe they didn't remember it like I did or something. Who knows? So, now, I typically will answer questions that people post as comments. I oftentimes will even address just a comment, and of course, you're always invited to post a question too if you would like. But let's get on into the video. All right, I got some juicy comments and questions to cover in this video. The first one goes like this. Very soon, it will be there. A unified New World Order, a united New World Government, a new unified world constitution, okay, a new global unified currency, digital, a new unified world religion, a common universal language, English. Now, I have to say, and I'm just, like I said, this is his opinion. I don't share this opinion. Out of what he's listed there, anything from a new world order to all the way to a common universal language, according to my information, the only thing really that is planned for the future is a common universal language, English, which is already kind of a universal language today, at least amongst businesses and so forth, pilots and those kind of things. But according to the masters, in the future, schools will teach a simplified form of English to students all over the world to help them communicate, kind of as a universal language. But everyone will have their own language of their own country along with it. So we're not going to give up the languages that we already speak for now until telepathy takes over, and then we just speak telepathic communication, and that's it. Now the other ones, anything from a new world order to a new unified world religion, new government, and those kind of things. I have to say I haven't heard anybody talk about this in a while, but the first time I heard about this, I really can't remember the first time I heard about it because it was so long ago that I heard somebody talk about a new world order, new world government. They talked about the Illuminati taking over the world and creating a one world country, government kind of thing that would control everything in a fascist kind of way, put people in internment camps, all sorts of stuff. Other people talked about the United Nations doing that. Now people talk about the deep state and all this kind of stuff, So mainly people are talking more about conspiracy theories that are going on in reference to coronavirus than this kind of thing. But this paranoia and paranoid conspiracy theory has been going on for, wow, like I said, since I can't remember when I first time I ever heard this, And like I said, I've heard it coming from the Illuminati, from the United Nations, now it's the deep state. I don't know, it could be from Harvey the Rabbit. It doesn't matter because there's no truth to any of it. Now, this, of course, is your opinion. You can have your opinion if you want or whatever like that, but I wouldn't worry too much about this thing. Because I think even just logistically, if there was a fascist government that wanted to take over the world and had the resources and the money to do it, I still don't think they could do it because the world is so diverse and so big, and there's not a lot of, the best way to take over a country or is to basically take over their economy and not take over themselves militarily, really, because then the people don't realize they've been taken over. But when you see different soldiers with different uniforms and different types of tanks rolling down the street, well, then you start to know that you are being oppressed. Economically, it seems that you can be just as repressed as someone who's taken over militarily, but yet not realize it. So that's what I think they've done today, more than anything. But the United Nations, and I want to kind of talk about this for a second. The United Nations, from the Master's point of view, is the hope for humanity in the now and into the future. Right now, the United Nations, there's not much to it because of the Security Council, and in the particular, the permanent members or the permanent nations of the Security Council that can veto anything at will that doesn't suit their purposes. So there really isn't a kind of a democratic approach to the United Nations because those permanent, like I said, those permanent nations can overrule anything. And so what good is it really? So any kind of sanctions that they don't agree with, nope, we don't like it. And that's pretty much the end of that. So according to Benjamin Creme's master, in the future, the Security Council will be disbanded. And then each country, no matter what country it is, will have one vote, and it will be just as important as the United States votes or Canada or Russia or England or whoever. And then each nation will feel like they have something to contribute to all the nations and helping to guide and steering nations and so all the nations toward toward its own future. Now each country will remain autonomous. Each country will be able to govern itself, but yet be held accountable to other nations. The United Nations in and of itself will play a policing role, and especially initially, making sure that illegal arms aren't sent to certain areas to help, instigate conflicts and so forth. Conflicts will be resolved peacefully within the United Nations. Each nation will, give its insight and help into helping to resolve those situations, those kind of things. So it will be more like that. And then within the United Nations too, and this is very important, will hopefully, this is the plan, and it's the best plan that humanity has come forth to help institute the principle of sharing, but a department within the United Nations will be set up to help oversee the redistribution of the excess resources, so that countries will be able to put into a common pool those resources that they don't particularly need for that year. Other nations that need maybe that particular resources can pull from it freely. They can give excesses or whatever they have into the common pool to help, and maybe another country can pull from that and so forth. So it would be a kind of a lease-lend kind of thing. Very, very, very similar to what the United States already did after World War II with the Marshall Plan. So if you're interested in the principle of sharing, or you're afraid about what's going to happen with it, there's already been one example of it that has taken place, and it was actually quite astounding, the results of it. It created trust amongst the nations that shared with one another. It created a peaceful relationship between them, and it also rebuilt the economies and the infrastructures of all the nations that participated in the sharing. The problem was it wasn't done globally, and it wasn't done for very long. But even the little tiny window of time that they did the principle of sharing, the peaceful results of it are still flourishing today. So like Jesus said, a tree is known by its fruit, right? Well, the fruit of the tree of sharing is peace, and there is no other way to peace. So that's what the United Nations will be. And then that particular department, at least initially, will be overseen by one of these masters. I don't know which one, but one of them will take it over and will be the overseer to make sure that it's run efficiently and properly. There's no corruption. Nobody siphons off resources for their own particular gain. Nobody withholds resources that were supposed to be given freely to a nation that needs it, and that kind of thing. And these masters are very, very smart, and they are omniscient. They can read people's minds, and the other thing is they don't have to sleep. So that person will be in the office day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and will be working with such a level of joy, and won't even have to go down to the vending machine to get candy and eat it. So, or little snacks. He doesn't even have to eat anything. So, but that's kind of what the future of the United Nations will be. But it really is, again, each nation will withhold its own autonomy, and there won't be this erasing of borders and one country overseen by a fascist, government or something like that. Or, it's just a bunch of paranoia that people have. It's not based on any truth. And so the thing that I wanted to bring into this too, because the people who believe this conspiracy and have believed it for years, right behind it also think that each one of us would lose our own individuality, especially when they listen to somebody like Benjamin Creme talk about the fact, the need for unity, the need for oneness. They think that means that everything's going to be homogeneous. Well, the truth of the matter is there's unity and oneness all throughout cosmos, but there's also diversity. There is no similarities between anything. So you as a soul on this planet, there is no other soul in all of cosmos that's exactly like you. And you have something to offer the world and to the cosmos as a whole that no one else in all of cosmos can contribute to. And the masters hold life in all its form as sacred. And so in the future, diversity will be celebrated in more of a way than it is even now. Uniqueness will be celebrated more than it is even now. And individuality will even be celebrated more than it is now. But it will still be seen under the truth of oneness and unity. And so your individuality, your uniqueness, your creativity will be there for you to express, but yet not at the expense of other people. So that's kind of where we're headed. And I wanted to read one of Benjamin Creme's master's article, just a little bit of it, to kind of bring this home, because the plan of Maitreya and the Masters is not a unified new world order, a united world government, a new unified world constitution, a new global unified currency, a new unified world religion, or a common use for languages. But it's more like this. And this is coming from the mind of one of the masters, Benjamin Creme's master. Each one has a part to play in the complex pattern being woven by humanity. Each contribution is uniquely valuable and necessary to the whole. However dim as yet the spark, there is no one in whom the fire of creativity cannot be lit. The art of living is the art of giving expression to that creative fire, and so revealing the nature of men as potential gods. It is essential that all men share in this experience and learn the art of living. Until now, a truly creative life has been the privilege of the few. In this coming time, the untapped creativity of millions, and dare I say billions, will add a new luster to the achievements of man. So, and I also need to say too, because you probably haven't heard this before, but this has been addressed before. When the masters refer to humanity as man or men, they're not speaking about the male gender. They're speaking about humanity as a whole. They view humanity as the sons of mind. If you happen to be a male angel, or from the Eastern point of view, diva, well, then you're the daughters of feeling. So you have to deal with it on that end. So the angelic evolution, or the devic evolution, is parallel to the human evolution. They're the daughters of feeling. We're the sons of mind. So it's not referring to just men, the male, person only. So hopefully that helps. All right. So, but there's a lot to what you said. But it's very important to understand, again, that Maitreya and these masters see the value in every single living person on this planet and know that they are a soul. Will be teaching them how to express that divinity within them and manifest that divinity within themselves. So, and will honor it and keep it, and hopefully teach humanity that each one of us has that within us, and that we should honor the life of every one of us and not just take life for granted, that kind of thing. So it's much more beautiful than what people think. Anyway, now the next questions came from a gentleman named Paul B. And what happened with him was I actually attempted to answer the question in the last video. Now here's the thing. I apologize, I did not answer it. I actually totally spaced and skipped over the question when I recorded it. So when I went back and listened to it, I was like, yeah, and I read his comment. I was like, oh, crap, I forgot. So I'm man enough to admit when I made a mistake. Now, here's the thing, Paul, and anybody else. I record these videos on my phone on an app. There's not a lot of editing capabilities in my phone. I'm not a polished public speaker. I'm not a professional broadcaster, and I'm not a professional YouTuber that knows how to edit videos or has a staff to edit videos. I just kind of record these videos. And I know it seems like I just kind of throw them up willy-nilly and turn it off, upload it, and get on with my day. But I do take a lot of time recording these videos, because what happens is if I make a mistake, I got to go back to the beginning and start the whole thing over again. So there's a lot of times I make mistakes, and I'll listen to it, and I know I made a mistake. I know I misspoke, or I might have, used grammatical errors or whatever like this, and I have to leave it in versus going back and recording another half hour. So, and then having to listen to a half hour. So to see if I got any other mistakes. So I have to kind of judge it based on, is it valuable? Is it, good enough? Even though there might be a mistake or two here or there. So what happened was, in the first edition of the video that I recorded, I actually answered it. And then when I went back and recorded it again, I was thinking in my mind that I had answered your question, but that was in the previous one that I deleted. So I apologize. But like I said, I don't mean to not answer somebody's question, but when I read, Paul, your paragraphs that you were reading about your questions, it made me laugh, knowing that I do go off on tangents and I don't always answer questions. So when I'm laughing at what you're saying, I'm not being patronistic to what you're saying. I'm really, truly laughing at myself mainly. But this is what he wrote. Separately from issues such as anti-Semitism and Luciferianism and Satanism, in other words, keeping away from those issues and focusing only on this specific question. Is it true that Maitreya believes Jehovah is evil? Jehovah is the God of the Hebrew Bible, but this time I'm not saying God of Jewry. in order to keep the question separate from the Jewish issue. And I'm not talking about any spiritual entity overthrowing Jehovah this time. So I'm keeping Satan, Lucifer, and whoever else out of it too. The only question is whether Maitreya believes Jehovah is evil. Hannah Newman claimed in this quote, I showed that Bailey and Blavatsky thought that, and that Gnostics did also. And Edward Gibbon claimed in his quote that the Gnostics thought that. But this time, just focus on the specific issue of whether Maitreya believes Jehovah is evil, and avoid in this reply the issues of anti-Semitism and Luciferianism and Satanism. Because in your reply, I did not feel like you really addressed the issue of Maitreya's view on Jehovah and his view on whether this material world is evil and whether he is Gnostic in the sense of holding the belief the material world is evil. I think there will be clear answer on that question if it is separated from the other questions that I initially tied it to. The only question this time are whether Jehovah is evil and whether the material world is evil. Anti-Semitism and liberating figures like Satan are a part of what I'm asking this time. So, anyway, so thank you for that. Now, you also asked the question in the last video, and this is the other one I forgot, is Maitreya Gnostic? Now, so the question, I'm going to keep it very simple so you know, so I at least answer what you're asking specifically, and then I will try to elaborate on what I'm talking about, okay? Fair enough, Paul? Because I don't see these answers as end-all and be-alls of anything. I think they should be more of an inquiry so we learn more than just, I give you an answer and it's correct kind of deal, right? So, is Maitreya a Gnostic? No. Does he believe that the God Jehovah is evil? No. Does he believe the material world is evil? No. Does that answer it specifically for you, Paul? And I'm not trying to patronize you. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm answering it exactly what you said. Is Maitreya Gnostic? No. Does he believe the material world is evil? No. Does he believe the Jehovah God of the Hebrew Bible is evil? No. Okay, so let me explain. Is Maitreya Gnostic? Somebody asked a question a few videos back. I can't remember exactly when. Does Maitreya believe in God? And I started out the question like this. Okay, I talk about Maitreya. I've had experiences with Maitreya. I've met him many times. I've read Benjamin Creme's books and Alice Bailey books. I try to use my intuition to answer those questions that people have. I can put two and two together sometimes. A lot of times I just recite what I've read, those kind of things. Sometimes I kind of put my own little spin on it. But in no way, shape, or form am I trying to speak for Benjamin Creme, Jesus, or Maitreya. I know it might sound like that sometimes, and people do accuse me of that, especially people who are very familiar with this information. They've criticized me about that in the past. Not so much now, but in the past. That I'm putting words in Maitreya's mouth, or I'm speaking for him, or something like this. So when somebody asks me that question, does Maitreya believe in God? It's the same question as if it really is Maitreya a Gnostic. It would be the same question if somebody says, is Maitreya a Muslim? Or is Maitreya a Christian? Or is Maitreya Hindu? Or is Maitreya Jewish? It's the same question, really. These masters, if so, the reason why I said, and I answered when somebody asked, does Maitreya believe in God? I would say I'd have to answer no. Now, you would think initially that would mean that Maitreya would be anti-God or an atheist or something like that. And then there'd be people who automatically think he's the Antichrist or listening to anything that anybody says from Benjamin Creme to me to see if they can pick up on any clues that we're really thinking he's the Antichrist and putting him out there as the Christ. So they, see, that's what I meant. That's what we're listening for. And that's what Constance Kumbi did with Alice Bailey. She picked out bits and pieces of what Alice Bailey said, took it out of context, and forged it from her own prejudice against people who who follow the ageless wisdom teachings and are teaching the ageless wisdom teachings such as Alice Bailey. That's really all she did. So, the reason why I would say Maitreya doesn't believe in God is because he knows who God is. Belief is a human construction, just like Gnosticism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism and Buddhism and any other belief, even republicanism and democraticism and capitalism and communism and socialism, these are all human constructions. So you can't even say, is Maitreya a socialist? Now, what I would say to your question is, reading what I know and knowing what I know about Gnosticism, there are things in Gnosticism that Maitreya would say, yes, there's some truth to that. But he would also say the same thing about Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. He also says that there's actually good in capitalism too, and socialism, but it should be a blending of the two, not one or the other. And it certainly should be 100% capitalism and no socialism, just like it shouldn't be 100% socialism and no capitalism. Do you see what I'm saying? So Maitreya knows who God is. All these masters do. They know who and what God is. And it started from looking at self-realization, which Maitreya says self-realization can be realized within any moral framework or belief, or no belief at all. So belief from humanity's point of view is the end-all and be-all of life and spiritual life, really. But there's no truth to that. It really is just like building a structure, like a house or a bridge or a car or whatever. It kind of gets you there, but it doesn't get you all the way there. So we can't really pin any ideology or any kind of philosophical belief on these masters. And since we're talking about Maitreya mainly, we can't do that either. But he would say, yes, there are truths to Gnosticism, that it's not about salvation based off of belief. It's more about living a good life or so forth, or whatever the Gnostics believe for what they believe. You know what I'm saying? But he would say the same thing about Christianity. And then you could tie it back into this whole thing about, about the Christ himself. These are, Maitreya is known by the names Christ, Imam Mahdi, Kalki Avatar, Messiah, or Maitreya the fifth Buddha. But he would say these are just names that we call him. Those aren't really him. Do you follow what I'm saying, Paul? So I'm not trying to double speak and speak around your question. But to truly answer your question, I would have to say no. Now, are there things that like I said, are there things that he would say are there truths in Gnosticism? Yes. Is there distortions in Gnosticism? Yes. Are there probably Gnostics who believe the material world is evil? I guess so. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Maitreya would say, it's 100% or nothing, like so many Christians do about this information, that it's either 100% or nothing. Because people such as myself and thousands of other people view Maitreya as the awaited teacher for all religions, they don't believe that. Okay. You know what I'm saying? There's no problem with that. Why not look at what Maitreya says about creating peace in the world and the need and the necessity and the absolute necessity to create peace? That we have to share the world's resources to bring about justice, to bring about peace, or there will be no future. Why not look at that as a truth? They can't do that. Do you see what I'm saying? And it's almost in line with what you're saying about all one of these questions. All three of your questions. It's 100. Is it 100% or nothing? Does Maitreya think that the material world is evil? No, of course not. Now, he would say, and I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'm just, from my perspective of what I think he would say, I guess, would be more a way of saying it, is it's all based on, like, let's say an individual, right? Or that would be like saying all individuals are evil. Like he would say the same thing to a Catholic, that you're not born into sin. The true sin is separation. And really the only sin is separation. Maitreya says it's a crime that should be driven from this earth forever. But the masters know that all the suffering, all the ills of the world, without exception, come from the illusion that we believe ourselves to be separate. So, Catholicism believes that you're born into sin and you have to ask the church for forgiveness to go to heaven, right? For instance, right? And there's nothing you can do. Your fault from the day you started, right? Maitreya would say there's no truth to that either, right? So it would be the same thing as a Gnostic that says that the whole material world is evil. He would just say it's the level of we're all divine. There is no such thing as anything but divinity. It goes back to what I was talking about with the first comment about a one world government and all this kind of things. These masters know that within each one of us is nothing but divinity. It's just the level of how we're manifesting it. So society reflects the person and the people of the time. Well, the reason why our structures are not divine is because people aren't manifesting their own divinity yet in that way. That's why the masters are here to help us show how to manifest our divinity and create the structures to help support that divinity. The religious, the spiritual, the healthcare structures, the economic structures, the political structures, that's why Maitreya is here, and along with his group of masters. Does that answer that question? And a little bit better. So no, he doesn't think the whole material universe is evil. Of course not. And then to get into the Jehovah God, right? Again, I'm not trying to speak for Maitreya, but at least from what I've read from Alice Bailey, and not so much from HPB on this subject, but I can't even imagine Alice Bailey saying the Jehovah God is evil, because she would say that the Jehovah God is an illusion. There's no truth to it. It's early man trying to understand what God is. And it came from the teachers of the time, like Moses, trying to explain what life is really about. And then they had to explain it in a way to people who didn't understand it. And then the people of the time created that perception of God, which eventually became a myth. There is no truth to it. It's just like people who believe that Jesus is the only true Son of God. There's no truth to that. We are all sons of God. Maitreya will never claim to be the only true Son of God. Even when you see Jesus along with Maitreya, he will never claim to be the only true Son of God. I don't even think Jesus 2,000 years ago claimed to be that. I think that was written in there mainly by Paul, who never even met Jesus. But that's just my humble opinion on that. So, Alice Bailey, the Master DK through Alice Bailey, the only thing that I ever read or remember reading about him referring to anything in religion as evil was he said that the greatest triumph for the forces of evil was the monopolization of spirituality within religion. The lie is that man is separate from God. The truth is there's no separation between man and God. There's no separation in all of cosmos. So there can't be any separation between the material and the unmanifested universe, or the self and the not self, or consciousness and the self, however you want to call it. These are just names anyway. But there's no separation between God and man. And the evil that the churches did is to create this illusion within the minds of man and perpetuate it through their own instructions and teachings, and did a great deal of harm to humanity, teaching them the lie that humanity is separate from God. And then guess who's the intermediary? They are. Guess who's the only one that can speak the truth and knows the truth about God? Them. There is no truth to that. So Alice Bailey, when I talked about the other stuff the other day, she was speaking about against the injustice of the churches, but not the Jehovah God. There's no, that's just early man trying to comprehend God. Just like Genesis, they're trying to comprehend the origins of mankind. You know what I mean? So, again, since you asked it multiple times, I will answer it multiple times. Is Maitreya a Gnostic? No. Does he believe the material world, all the material world is evil? No, not at all. Does he believe the Jehovah God is evil? No. So, I think I answered that question. I think I also kind of went into a little bit more in depth about why I would say that. But if that doesn't satisfy you, I am fairly confident that you will eventually see Maitreya out in public, open in the world, and he'll be taking questions from his fellow brothers, and you can raise your hand and ask him that question for yourself and see what answer he gives you, because I'm sure it'll be a lot better than the answer I gave you. But I will say this, Paul. I apologize for not answering your question in the last one. I didn't mean to, and I'm man enough to admit when I made a mistake. Hopefully I answered it in this video. If not, repost your question, send it to the complaint compartment here at Search for Signs, and we'll look at answering it again. But it really is more about an inquiry and a discussion anyway than me giving you the correct answer. So, and I always, like I said, I always want to invite people to ask questions. You're always invited to answer questions, and hopefully we can keep the discussion going. So you have a great day, a good Halloween, and we'll look forward to maybe talking to you either on the Dia de Muerte, which is what the Spanish always call the Day of the Dead, or we'll talk to you sometime in November. You take care. Have a great day. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.